Welcome. My name is Daniel Fohr. I'm the Executive Director of the Earth Medicine Alliance. The Alliance is an interfaith, earth-honoring nonprofit in the state of California, and we are dedicated to helping humans to repair and renew their relationships with the natural world. For more information on our work, see www.earthmedicine.org. We are pleased to welcome today Malidoma Somé as part of our Voices of the Earth interview project. Malidoma is an initiated elder, teacher, and diviner of the Dagara people of Burkina Faso, West Africa. He leads intensive trainings throughout the United States and Europe on traditional African medicine, and he also leads groups to Burkina Faso. Malidoma is also the author of several books, including Of Water and the Spirit, Ritual, Power, Healing, and Community, and The Healing Wisdom of Africa. For more information on Malidoma's work, see www.malidoma.com. Welcome, Malidoma.
Thank you.
Malidoma, a major focus of your work over the past 2 decades has been kindling the fire of indigenous wisdom here in the United States, a hub of modern Western culture. What do you personally count as your biggest successes in this massive undertaking? What seems to be really working about this?
Well, off my head, I can think of the immediate response that modern people have towards ritual. The familiarity that they have with respect to it was the first shock I had, and the overall receptivity to reasonably well formulated indigenous wisdom, the kind that is chewable by Western understanding, because in the midst of all the thirst and hunger for spirituality, there is still the Cartesian logic associated with it, and so it is something which I have found quite refreshing to be able to cook a version of African spirituality to Westerners in such a way that they could swallow it.
What have you found to be especially successful in encouraging community?
Certainly, if I understand your question well, what I've found encouraging really has come from the rather spontaneous embracing of a wisdom coming from Africa, particularly a Dagara version of it, in a way that I wasn't expecting. More often than not, if you're coming from Africa to this part of the world, you'd have no idea that anything that you represent and any kind of knowledge you have acquired in your own little community will be of any interest to anybody here, simply because of the manner in which this culture has advertised itself to third world cultures in general, and particularly indigenous cultures, that they are superior, they need nothing, and in fact they have everything anybody over there should need. So the big surprise has been indeed the denunciation of this kind of propaganda, which in turn has resulted in a better appreciation of my own indigenous culture, because of the open-hearted, open-hand welcoming of it in this part of the world.
Some individuals who don't have any recent ancestral connection to Africa might feel an internal block about participating in traditional African spirituality. What advice would you give to those individuals on how to participate in community ritual in ways that encourage healing and not further division?
Well, the fundamental of Western predicaments really has to do with the crisis of the soul, the illness of the spirit. I also have to mention the fact that the source, at least the diagnostic of such a situation, reveal a latent disconnectedness with any genuine sacredness. Consequently, the first thing I would like to suggest is at least give the whole thing the benefit of the doubt. Enter into this field with a mind to give a chance to your spirit to heal. Approach the other world with the hope that you might find something in it that your own culture has failed to offer you. And that in doing so, you might end up being an artisan in the salvation of your own culture. And so this is the kind I would like to encourage people who find themselves blocked by all sorts of unknown conditionings in the face of a sacred they have no way of dissecting in the manner consistent with their own upbringing. And so in doing so, they're at least offering themselves a new adventure that might perhaps lead them to a place of betterment. And if it doesn't, at least there shall be no damage. The only thing to regret is that a little bit of time has been put to wrong use. But I doubt that, having had the experience of witnessing the manner in which people suspicious of this, who have given it the benefit of the doubt, including major skeptic, have ended up embracing it with so much vehemence that it has come to me as a shock, a surprise.
You spoke of some of the kinds of thoughts that people can have here in the West about participation in ritual or indigenous ways. Can you share about what some of your biggest challenges in introducing indigenous wisdom here have been? And another way of asking that maybe is there advice that you would give yourself 20 years ago as you were setting out in this work of introducing traditional Dagara wisdom here?
Well, certainly. If I were to turn the wheel of time back, of course, I will be more careful. The almost instantaneous embracing of indigenous culture, at least the African brand, also came along with this plethora of demons and projections and assumptions, resulting in more dysfunction than I would have hoped to. For one, I should have learned that when Westerners embrace an indigenous culture, they tend to do that in a way that suggests a rather ungrounded romanticism, a fatal attraction to the exotic, and resulting in an impossible expectation. The heal me now, take care of me right away kind of people have eventually given me the sense that they perceive this kind of wisdom as essentially commodifiable, in the sense that they needed to indeed purchase it right away if they could, because of the immediate need they have for this kind of material. I've seen it time and again, and turned that internally, resulting in an introspection that reveals to me that maybe I'm part of the problem. because of the angle of presentation of the material, I've ended up conveying maybe too bright a picture, too positive an outlook, and as a result, maybe falling into the trap of somewhat of a misrepresentation. People had to understand that you don't gain an enlightenment over a weekend workshop. That is unreasonable, and that is too high an expectation placed on somebody whom you want to look at as a teacher. And I have discovered over the years that these drive-by or fly-by workshops or seminars, those random lectures here and there, have only contributed to the spread of the wisdom in a fashion that seemed to be trapped in the modus operandi of a cultural phenomena, in which if you're the carrier of any exotic wisdom, you got to prepare yourself for being on the, call it, lecture trail, and expect to show up at various institutions that actually express their interest in the material that you have was somewhat of an assumed, conditioned reservation. Like, here's a space for your ancestors' ritual. There shall be no candle because of fire restrictions. But we need an ancestor ritual to heal. Figure it out. And so, of course, I found myself realizing the challenge that means, to try to figure out, to do something that is usually not done anywhere near in this kind of context, and yet being expected to do so by people who have no idea that this is not possible. All they thought was, here are 4 walls and the ground, just do it. Make us fine tonight. So these are the kind of things I should have thought about earlier.